I'm going to have a chat with you today, and it's not going to be a review. I will tell you all about the car. We will test the car, but I'm going to tell you why it's not really an Ecto, but why that also may not matter. This is an interesting little model. It's slightly longer than the mini size stuff we've got, certainly longer than the Baby Capra, which we're also going to talk about. And I'm going to end this video by telling you whether or not I think it's worthy of a purchase and who should buy it, and maybe who shouldn't buy it. This is going to be a bit of a polarizing model. I will do my best to give you a fair and thorough look at the thing, but really I want to know, what's it like on the trail? What's it like on the rocks? What's it like underneath? Should I modify it? Should I keep it stock? Should I even buy it in the first place? If you've had any of these questions about this, then this is the video for you. Let me show you the Enduro12 Baby Ecto. Let's do it. This is the Associated Electronics Element RC Enduro12 Ecto Trail Truck. Say that 3 times backwards. We're going to call it the Baby Ecto because in the same way that we call the Capra UTB18 the Baby Capra, I think that's actually a fairly apt name. So I'm going to call it the Baby Ecto throughout. Please forgive me, Element. I mean no disrespect, but it is a Baby Ecto, kind of, sort of. The Enduro12 has been around for a little while, and when I saw that, you know what I first thought? I'll tell you what I first thought. I thought, you beauty. This is the Baby Capra, which isn't available anymore. There's the 4-wheel steering one, which I've got up in the shed, but I thought, gee, it might be another possibility for the mini class, because this and this monstrosity are actually the same car. This one's running a custom chassis, custom suspension, custom motor, custom servo, custom axles with extremely tight steering on them, custom wheels and tires. Custom radio, it's basically the only thing that makes it a Baby Capra is the skid, I think, is the skid and the transmission and the axles. They're the only things that make it a Capra. That's actually brought back the competition crawling class for Mini, because it used to be built on the Losi MRC. And those diffs were just notoriously weak. And I thought, I'll tell you what, I'd like to see more in this size. Now, the thing about this size, and I'll get to the car in a sec, is this wheelbase is 9 inches exactly at all. Like it maxes out at 9 inches regardless of compression. That's the longest it can be to be mini legal. 9 by 9 is the limit, and this is like 7.8 or something. So this fits beautifully in mini. I saw the Ecto and I thought, well, do you know what I like about the Ecto? What I like about the Ecto is that it's the most capable in the Enduro range of the 110 scale stuff. I've got the Enduro range and I like it. But this guy with his trailing arms, this and Zool and Gatekeeper all share this, that makes it extremely capable. And I thought, wow, if I can get this in that size, sign me up, I'm in. And so that's what I did. Here it is. Now, I'm an Ecto fan. I'm an Element fan. Imagine my disappointment, if you will, when I saw that it doesn't have trailing arms. I don't read anything about these cars before I buy them, by the way. I just like to get the car and use it. It's got SCX10 original level spaghetti. Like, I haven't done this yet, but I'll be able to. Like, the links are so soft. The bend in that will actually protect this car for a long time. I've got bits of plastic falling out. Oh, this will be the back of the mirror. So these are just press fit, by the way. Good to know you can glue that. So we'll get to that. My question is, though, trailing arms or not, is this thing going to be a mini contender? Well, now that I've got this, I kind of need to get the baby Sendero, because unfortunately, no, it's not. The wheelbase, and their wheels are both on the ground here, the wheelbase is wrong, so I can't use it. But maybe what I could do is use the axles. Maybe what I could do is use the transmission. Or maybe I could adapt this to being a competitive crawler. I'm actually interested to see. This doesn't have unis in the front axles, but the steering angle is definitely good. I'd say it's comparable to the Baby Capra, the UTB18 here. And look, the Baby Capra had really over-soft tyres. As long as you keep it stock and light, they're okay, but they needed changing. This has much firmer tyres, like considerably firmer. This has trail truck in its name. The full-size Capra certainly has trail truck in its name too, but we all crawl with them. I might actually, I've already run this on the 6 problem course actually. So what we'll do is, we'll get this on the 6 problem course today and we shall see just how well it crawls. I'm actually quite interested to see. Now the Sendero didn't come with it, none of them came with it, but the Enduro SE Sendero came with this little FlySky all-in-one job, which I liked. And that was to say goodbye to the older radios. Didn't like them, I like these. So that's nice. These guys have that in common, and moving forward I expect we're going to see Element doing that. At some point they'll run out of stock of their old Senderos and Bushidos and Night Runners and whatever else. Maybe the newer stuff will be stocked with this, I don't know. They were using Reedy power systems. This thing has changed to FlySky, but there's still Reedy branding on it because that's under the same ownership. Right, that's a bit of a jump into the technical side of things. We'll put UTB-18 away. Right, let's take the lid off this thing. I've got 2 reasons to do it. The first reason is I need to put the mirror back on. It popped off because they just press fit on, and loosely press fit on at that actually. It's a bit of a strange decision. So I actually prefer that they did this instead of what many companies do, and certainly RGT used to do this, they don't anymore. They would press fit something on like this, put the little collar underneath it, and then someone with a chiseled or flat bladed soldering iron would then press the plastic. Cross RC does this with some of their building as well. That would kind of seal it on forever, forever being until something snapped off. At least this way, aside from losing it, nothing breaks, the thing just pops off. You could use a dab of glue to secure it, a bit of silicone or even super glue. It'll hold that on just fine. Now as you can see, there are no windows in this thing. It's a very simple body shell. Not that different actually from the Ecto, the full-size Ecto. Now I suggested this may not be an Element Ecto underneath, and what I meant by that was mainly the lack of trailing arms. It's a 4-link suspension setup front and rear, and as attractive as the thing is with its flat rails that actually take some bending, like they've done a fair bit of engineering in this thing, I am disappointed, I must admit, that it doesn't have the trailing arms, because I tell you what, I'd be interested to see just how well this thing performed with trailing arms. I don't need more projects, I'm a busy guy, and I've got the Nationals next month in March. But having just said that, I've got to tell you, how difficult could it really be to engineer my own trailing arms that are 3D printable, that have more stiffness than this silly thing? It's kind of silly, kind of not, right? The fact that you can do this, it's it might seem like a big deal, but it's actually going to save some of these things from breaking. But if you don't drive with disregard for the running gear, I mean, what have we got to do? We've got to move the mount points back, so I could do that. Then we just need trailing arms, we need a mount point for the shocks, we need to move the shocks forward, and then we'll end up with a shorter wheelbase, which might get us under the 9 inches, which might get us to mini length. And I tell you what, once we've got mini wheelbase, because if I've got to move stuff in, ooh, then we can cut some of the frame off as well. You could chop the rear bed off this thing or whatever you want to do, use a different body. What I'd really like to do is see how well this thing can compete in mini. Now then, I'm getting carried away here because this has been out for a while. So fair warning, this is not a review, this is a discussion. You know I like discussions if you're not new to my channel. I like to talk about a car and just to learn about the thing and let's see if we can guess at why they've done certain things a certain way, and you know, just work out what's good about it, what's maybe in need of improvement, right? What I'd really like is to get a trailing arm setup, and also these RC four-wheel drive Bully Comp pin tyres. These are the ones that I ran on my Mini when I took second last year at the ECCF, our nationals in Australia. I'm actually testing with bigger tyres this year, the, what are they called? What's the thing? Extreme Route Lampreys. So they're actually the 4.7 tyre or something. 4.71, there you go. And I know that these are 4.19s, these are like your class 1 size. You're allowed up to 4.8 in Mini. So that's the difference in what I'm running this year. And I've tuned my own foams and everything. Like, that's a different video that I'll probably make at some point. But look, the size difference here is not enormous. And these wheels, by the way, are the RC all-wheel drive cyber wheels with the weights that you can add or remove all around the rim. The size difference is not huge, and it'll fit under here, no worries. The width is actually the same as well. So what do you reckon? Get some pins on there, shorten the thing in, get some trailing arms under it. We might actually have another mini contender for crawling. We have a servo on axle, and it's not a standard size servo, it's a smaller servo. But if I'm 3D printing some stuff, it wouldn't be that difficult to make a bigger bracket. And thankfully, these axles have a big riser on them, which means the arms only come out each side, which means I can make them very strong enough to take a full-size servo, and a strong one at that. Okay, and look, it's a 380 motor. You know what would fit just there nicely, don't you? One of the new, I've got them here in a box too, one of the new Hobby Wing 380 size FOC motors. That could be very interesting indeed. I like the location of the skid, I like how short it is, and I like the bias at the moment of front to rear. But I tell you what, if I make trailing arms for this, the other thing I'm going to do is probably move everything forward a bit. I'm going to make my own frame for this as well. So, you know what's coming, don't you? Just like with the Mini, what we're going to end up with is the original skid, the original transmission, and the original axles, and that'll be it. Now, notably, as a difference from the UTB18 that I've been talking about, this is a straight axle vehicle. And this is the other part of what makes this an Ecto. That and the trailing arms would be, in my mind, a baby Ecto. It's not, I'm going to call it a stretched Enduro. Look, it's an Enduro12, that's the name of this family of cars, and there's a Sendero as well, and probably others, I just was aware of those two. These tyres are going to be great for trail, they're going to be ordinary for crawling, I think. Today we're going to run it around the 6 problem course, but let me just talk about the thing first. This has one of those BS receivers, which means we're going to need the RGT R6D receiver, and I bought 4 or 5 of those recently, which means you can still use the original radio if you want to, and still have the same control. I'll come back to you on modifying this thing. We're going to have a tinker, because I'd also like to get that battery, which is an 850 lithium ion, by the way, with a charger. I've charged that for this video, but this will be the only time I use it. I'd like to get that sitting up front somehow in here as well. And I reckon we can bring the front in a little bit, bring the back in a little bit, but still have the back longer than the front. I'll need to make my own chassis. We're going to need a body for it, I guess. I don't really want to cut this up, but I know I'm talking about comp stuff, but look, I'm excited because this represents another possible jump for competition crawling. And the Mini class is really, really popular again. And look, I've released the HT Feather, which is my in-house developed chassis. It's ugly. There's no question of that, but the beauty of this chassis is that, ignore this brass by the way, this was a test, this is not how I run, it's usually plastic. The beauty of this chassis is that it lets you run the original skid, the original transmission, and the original links and drive shafts. It doesn't change that stuff, which makes this so much more affordable for setting up a comp rig, which otherwise can be expensive because you end up having to get custom everything to make it work. This, you can take one of these, print that, and end up with one of these, basically. That's the whole reason I designed it. So, although you can't really see it easily, the links are the same. I've made my own bent links and whatnot, but the lengths are all the same. This tilts there's dog outside. This tilts the skid forward though, which is good. So I've picked that up again because I'm excited about Mini. But wouldn't it be cool if we could do the same thing for this and make it so it's just a swap out? So you get this, look, you might make your own links or buy some shorter ones. I'll give you all the numbers. Before we take a single screwdriver to it, I think we should drive the thing. But I'll just make one more observation I just noticed. The baby Capra, this is completely stock, just for comparison. It won't be stock for much longer because I'm using it as a test bed for a different chassis. But this thing came with lower, straight stainless links and upper kind of noodly spaghetti links, but they're not as soft as these ones. It came with a noodly drag link and front steering armor. So this happens on the rocks. And the idea is it's kind of like a servo saver. It protects the servo, but it also lowers the accuracy of your servo, and especially if you upgrade the servo, oh boy. Now this thing's all noodly, right? But it gives you stainless drag link and steering link. So it's funny, isn't it? You get 4 stainless ones on the baby Capra, the baby Ecto gives you 2 up the front, and all noodles here. That's enough about the comp stuff. For those of you that are just interested in a trail truck, I'll tell you already, with where the balance point is on this thing, it's actually very nicely poised. I actually had the Sky RC kit. I've never even opened it, but we could be looking at the center of gravity, but I'd usually just stick the skid on my finger and we work out where the center is. Now that's without the battery in it. We're right underneath the transmission. Plonk the battery in, which doesn't weigh much, mind you, being a lithium ion. It says 850 milliamp hour, but it's got a big fat capacity on it for its size. Now, we've got to be back a little bit further. So the center of gravity's back. Where I'd really like it is to be about there, really where the front of the skid is. That's a good spot. Just got to check what this dog's barking at. Back in a sec. Okay, so we'll get to that in a sec. The only other thing I'll mention is if you haven't seen a review for this car, you probably have by now, but there's a Snakes and Ladders-esque board, complete with a spinner and tokens of the cars. So you can undo this box completely and turn it into a board game per the picture on top. So that's kind of cool. This is ready to run. Now I'll do the quick boring markety stuff. If you've seen any reviews of this, they'll have covered it better than me. Again, I'm here to talk shop with you. 4 AA's, this is the base model BS remote from FlySky. We've got a 380 motor of unknown turns. I'm sure it's in the material somewhere. And then the all-in-one BS ESC. This is their standard, whatever it is. I think it's a 40 amp, but I don't know. And it's a mini servo. Not a micro, but a mini. And this size seems to be coming back. There are a few cars recently I've looked at where they're using that size again. So the good news about seeing this particular mini size, which was rare until recently, Cross RC have used it as a shifter, and I think I saw it in, it could have been an MJX, I think. Was it the MJX? No, it's got a full size. One or two other cars recently had this mini size. But Cross RC's been using it a lot. It used to be common, then it got rare because even smaller servos got strong. This is supposed to be a Metal Gear waterproof job, so that's nice. I don't know what the model is. Should wear my glasses. 3.5 kilo, high speed, 0903 digital from Reedy. Probably a coreless motor. It's certainly a plastic horn. And now my other question is there overdrive? Well, the easy way to see that, do I have a marker? There we go. I'll mark the plastic. Why not? All right, here we go. Now the Ecto, the full size one, comes with that 7.9% overdrive out of the box. This looks notchy, but it's actually not. It is smooth. I'm just moving it from the motor as it turns. Oh. After 2 rotations, we're back to top dead center. There's no overdrive. Does this transmission even offer overdrive? One issue with having this as a competition mini is that I'm going to need overdrive either in the axle or in the transmission, and that might pull us up short. They're straight cut gears for the, sorry, I'll turn it this way. They're straight cut gears for the diffs. They've got bearings throughout. We're plastic body shocks, by the way. They're 2 plate style chassis rails, I should say. And like I said before, they're CVDs, not universals, and straight axles. But what I'm looking for is transmission and transmission gearing, so I guess we're going to need to get to the parts in the back. It's only a 3-gear transmission, which makes things less special. I guess our shafts are going to be the same direction. Yeah, they are. So they've gone a bit basic on this. They're plastic shafts, by the way, with metal, just a metal cross ball in the end there. There's no movement in the diffs here, which is what you want to see. That is, this can't move, which means the gear inside can't move against the crown wheel, which is really good for mesh. That means good, strong mesh and good, strong axles. I mentioned the MRC before in my intro. We have to shim those things to keep them strong. These aren't shimmed, they're just built with a tight tolerance. That's excellent. Oh, one thing I don't like is the screws here are protruding on the bottom of the diff. Do you know, that's going to catch on rocks everywhere and be frustrating. As is the bottom of the axle. What a shame. These are going to catch. These back ones, there's the front, there's the back. These back ones are going to catch like you wouldn't believe because it's smooth. It's beautiful and smooth until there. Now you've got a hook. And that you almost want a plate, like a flat little plate. That's really annoying. If I was using this for comp, I'd take a grinder and just Oh, maybe not. I'm not sure. I don't like seeing that. They're also very wide hex nuts, front and back, to widen the stance on it. They look like they'd be 12 mil even. You could go thinner on that. You wouldn't want to, but you could. This is... I'm not calling them lazy, but I think they could have made it better without too much effort, put it that way. Ah yes, now what we're looking for is option parts. We'll get to that in a sec. Just having a quick look. There's the faux winch up the front, of course. Now usually option parts are listed. What? No option parts. I'll turn this my way now to make sure I'm not missing something. Maybe it's in the front. It's not. By the way, this weighs absolutely nothing, right? The sheer lack of option parts and no overdrive could make this a non-starter for that project I was getting all excited about. Because if I can't overdrive this front by around 30%, say, or at least 20, the low 20%, some low 20s, if I can't do that, the rest of this modification becomes much less needful, because if it can't be competitive, we've got a problem. I could swap the axles for some others, and that would actually deal with this problem here. I'll tell you what, that could be interesting. The problem is, though, the transmission doesn't give us overdrive. I'm not complaining about the car because this is what I'd like from it, but also remember, it says trail truck in the name. That's not necessarily meant to be a crazy good crawler. Let's get this on my 6 problem course. Now, just keep in mind, the original Baby Capra didn't get very far on my 6 problems. These tyres really let it down. Upgrading to competition tyres and doing nothing else makes this thing considerably more capable, and I think it'll get probably 3 out of the 6 problems done. But once I had this on the plastic axles with some weights and this chassis, all 6 problems, easy. With some work, you can convert a crawler to crawl very, very well. The question is, one, is it the right choice for what you want? Because you've got your work cut out for you if you want to turn this into a competition mini. And I'm focused on that because our nationals are coming in a month of time of filming. And question 2, are there better options out there? What are the parts available for it? What are the aftermarket parts available for it? I see nothing in the paperwork here that tells us about additional parts, which is a shame, I tell you what. It's nice to see a spare servo horn, by the way. My last Baby Capra came with a busted servo horn and some busted plastics. This looks very tidy out of the box, but without upgrades being available for it, I do wonder about its aptitude for crawling. Now, the tyres are glued, they're not beadlock wheels. Given the price of this car, I kind of would have liked to see beadlocks, but they're just plastic, and look, they're quite hard, good for trailing, but if you're going to take these on crawling adventures and you're going to muck around, you're probably going to swap the tyres and wheels anyway. Not a big deal. Would have been nice to see beadlocks, but yeah, not a deal breaker. They look to me like 1.55 tyres too, be aware, and wheels, that is. Let's plug it in and see what we think of that for a start. Right, we're on. Steering. You see that? Now there's a dip switch on that. That's the red and white thing, DIP, dip switch. I can't remember what it stands for, but that's what it's called. We've got drag brake setting, and to make us have full drag brake, we turn 3 and 4 to the right. Now watch. Turn it back down. There's the difference. So it's in trail truck setup, and it gives you 0, 25, is that right? 0, 50, 75, 100. So we're on 100. We've got the battery type set to LiPo, and we currently have, strangely, forward reverse. If you really wanted a trail truck setup, you'd cram all of them down. And now, there you go, you've got brake. But I actually don't want brake. I want forward, reverse, and I want drag brake. Now, is it active? It's not active. So this is the other issue, and I found this when I did the competition with the this guy, the FMS LC80. You've got a drag brake, right? It's holding, and I'm pushing on this now with no throttle. But as soon as I add just the tiniest, and I'm talking the tiniest bit of throttle, right? That, it's not even moving. There's no drag brake. And it's not even enough throttle now to move it. There's still no drag brake. You've got to be off the throttle completely to have drag brake. Add any throttle, and off she goes. So this is what's called, well, what I would call passive drag brake. The Hobbywing WP1080 was a very popular ESC, partly because it had an active drag brake. That was option 13 on the programming card, freewheeling. You want to enable freewheeling. The BS range of ESCs and radios does not give you active drag brake. So that's actually a good enough reason to not even put the R6D thing in here if I put a Fusion in here, and I'm going to put a baby Fusion in it if I do the overhaul, and I won't bother otherwise. And if I was doing that, that Fusion comes with its own drag brake, which is very, very good. And if I wanted to keep this radio, then yes, I would put the R6D radio in from RGT. I'll put that in the description below, and that will allow you to still use the original radio with the Fusion. The other thing this would want, probably, is a stronger servo, because it doesn't have the berries to move the car at all like this. And in fact, if you look at what the servo is doing, it's just bending the plastic, and that's how much play is in there. What I'd like to see is the back kind of moving like that, if this was a competition crawler. So that's the other thing you'd want to replace. Now, as it is, it's absolutely ample, and if I hold it like this, it's got some strength. Will it fade with use? Yeah, I think it will. But I think we're going to find it's good enough. It's still trail rig speed, so we're going to have some challenges crawling with it. All the same, let's go crawl with it and see what we think. Let's do that. This is problem 1. Now, this is a 12th scale car that's incidentally much too fast for crawling. So this poor little motor is going to have a tough day in the office. So is the servo. Oh, do you know what we didn't check actually? Hang on. Let's just check our maximum throw here. The throw is adjustable with buttons, unfortunately. So I'll bring the car in, and so it turns out there was a lot more steering to be found. I'd really prefer a dial on this, but anyway, there we go. So now we've got maximum throw. This is problem 1, designed for 10 scale cars. This is not a competition though, so lest you worry that this is being unfair to the car, no, this is not a competition. So I'm not trying to do a Top Gear style leaderboard of who's the best on the same course. This is for us. Now, I tried to steer and I couldn't. The power wasn't there. I'm trying to determine what its crawling capability is out of the box. So if it can't do any of the problems, that doesn't mean it's a bad machine or a bad crawler. It just means it can't do any of the problems. That's all it means. These tyres are very hard. And remember I showed you the baby Capra had very soft tyres. They were arguably too soft. These are arguably too hard. And I think the stock foams that come in the RC four-wheel drive Bully comp tyres, those pin tyres I showed you, on some weighted wheels would make a world of difference. But the other thing that would make a difference for crawling here is a smaller pinion and or a higher turn brushed motor, or a brushless conversion to something like the 380 Fusion. The Fusion 16 or whatever it's called. There we go. Now I haven't adjusted the suspension. I think it's actually about right. It's quite long for this car, and see how it's already squatting down on the back and picking right up on the front? That suspension tells me that it's actually working as it should right now. So out of the box, no tuning was needed, and it's actually quite good. Now the drag brake's holding it just fine, which is great to see. And as long as I picked the right line, that was quite tidy. That was problem 1. Now this is problem 2. We might just move the camera. Now this is problem 2, and given the size of this thing and the hardness of these tyres, oh, look, the wheelbase could undo what I'm about to say, but I don't think it can do it. But then, now see the length of this thing. In particular, that wheel back there, the front right, I'm going to steer towards us a little, and then we're going to hope the servo is strong enough that when I steer the other way, it cranks the thing up and forward. It didn't have it. It can't self-right. It really doesn't weigh much, this car, but it's still fairly light all around, top to bottom, so it's still a little on the rolly side. The longer wheelbase is nice, that is Ecto-esque, but I still wish we had trailing arms, and I'm still tempted, even though we don't have overdrive, I'm still tempted to try a conversion and make my own. But it'll have to be after the end of March, because we have the Nationals coming, and I'm co-heading the committee on that thing as well, and running the event on the days. So it's I've got a lot of work to do in March, but I will be interested in getting to this soon after that, I think, because it's a nice looking car. I like the Ecto. This isn't yet an Ecto, and I'd like to see it become one. We'll give it one last try We'll use a slightly different line. We'll stay a little higher and hope that we can use those front tyres to pull us up. Now the rear's not, without overdrive, the rears are kind of pushing when we don't want them to push. What I really want is those fronts to do the pulling, and that's partly what overdrive is for. It kind of loads up the front and uses the springiness of the tyres to kind of grab the car and move it upwards, and the rears just kind of follow. I think there is a line here that this car can do, and I think it's pretty much where I am now. But I bet you, even if we stuck those oversoft baby Capra tyres on, it'd do it. Problem 3, this is everyone. Everyone, problem 3. Pleased to meet you. I am not sure whether this will do it. It may. Again, the wheelbase is its biggest advantage because it does have a few things working against it. And I do think those screws in the diff are going to catch on stuff. And I think when we do the debrief after this drive, we're going to find a lot of scratches. Now the motor is geared for trailing, which means it's probably geared to walk, to go at your walking speed. And the car's big enough that you'll be able to do that. The problem with the single speed brush system that's geared like that is that it makes it too fast for crawling. And we found that recently with the RGT Intruder. Beautiful car. I've just done 3 videos back to back on it, and it was too slow for trail walking and too fast for crawling. So for a car like that, a Fusion is the perfect answer. And we just needed the RGT R6D receiver. It's the same BS FlySky radio system in this car as in that. So the R6D receiver, I'll link in the description, will let you upgrade this car to whatever power system you like and still use the original transmitter if you want to. And there's nothing wrong with this transmitter, it's a fine transmitter. We're not going to get up this problem because the tyres just aren't gripping, they're too hard. Right, well, let's just do walking speed, just out of interest. Yeah, okay, so it's faster than walking speed. I don't need to measure it, I can just tell you now it's faster than walking speed, which is all you need for it to be a competent trail truck. This is problem 4. Now this car probably can't do problem 4. In fact, even getting up on the entry to problem 4 is going to be an issue for it. There's a piece of concrete here that catches a lot of cars out, and this one is no exception. The tyres aren't tall enough, the axles are straight. We're just catching up, and we're catching on it in several places. The servo is not really strong enough to hoik the car around where I want it, so I'm having to take alternate routes to get it up there. And we're getting considerable fade. I'll bring it right in because I think this might be the end of problem 4 at the very start. Almost all cars can do this, but again, this is a 12th scale, this is not a 10th scale. So these problems or obstacles are too big for this little car. All it's really doing for us is emphasizing the shortcomings of this design. That's all it is. It doesn't mean it's a bad crawler, it just means it struggles with this kind of thing. That's really all it means. And if you're buying this car, you're probably not a crawling fanatic, or you might be a fanatic hopeful, like I was when we talked about changing the thing to become mini. Now, if you're wondering whether it's my driving that's the problem here, yeah, it could be. But the thing about my driving is that it's always my driving. So you're seeing my driving for all the cars that can do this problem 4. And between you and me, I've got some accolades from crawling comps, and I do know what I'm doing. I'm trying every line I can see to try and get this thing up and onto the start of problem 4. And oh boy, we are not having a lot of luck. So, now, if we had stainless steel links then we wouldn't have done it, because that just then picked, like it bent over the rock, like it bent like my fingers bending over the rock. That's how it actually got up then. So if you were wondering about why it's plastic, and I said, if you're wondering about why plastic links can be an advantage, you just saw why. It gives the machine a bit of a break, and it also allows it to conform literally to the terrain, which once you toughen up a crawler, it can't actually do. So that's quite interesting. Now, I always try first to go slowly, and I've said this on the channel before. I'll always try a problem slowly before we go fast, because slow gives you control. When we go fast, It's a bit of a leap of faith, but sometimes it's the only way to get a car over when you don't have the clearance. We're going to stop problem 4 now because we're asking much more than what this car is capable of. The motor's probably cooking at this point. Oh yeah, she's hot. ESC is pretty warm, but remember it's just controlling an 850 lithium ion, and the servo's warm, not hot. Onward. Another quick look at speed while we're between problems. Like, that's plenty of speed, hey? Like, for a trail rig, you just, especially if the kids are just going to bash around with it, all right. You've got a moderately capable car here. Look, we're standing here, so let's do 5 from this angle. You can see for once what's going on. The wheelbase works against it, as does the clearance. Again, smaller tyres, straight axles, and long wheelbase, all combined to give you a car that struggles with clearing stuff like this. Now, I can't even steer much there. The poor old servo's having a tough day here. We've got a lot of fade now. I'm steering both ways and the thing's just not steering. So we've already exceeded what it's really designed to be able to do. Like, I'm trying to steer at the moment and I can't. Oh no. I'm going to put this down so I can use both hands. If I had the strength in the servo to steer back the other way, I could have done that. Couldn't even save it. Okay, last go. Is that servo hot? It's got to be getting hot. Oh, it's hot in the base where the motor is. All right. So everything is actually pretty hot right now. The motor is the hottest. It's at the most risk of burning out, but I don't think it will. This is why I put the tripod down, so I could actually rapidly steer. Now the servo is actually fast. It's just not terribly strong. Now you saw how I turned right to pull the thing forward then? So when you have speed, you kind of can have speed or strength, but not both, unless you have a more powerful motor and a higher voltage. Everything's a compromise, and this little car might be one compromise too far. I'll persist. Heavier wheels would have helped us here. We still may roll unless I'm very careful, so we're going to steer to bring the front down. There we go. I'm going to continue to pull it up. And once we get it up on the rocks, we'll change the camera. Ooh, it nearly did it. The servo is just about to fail. It's on the edge of failing. Like, the motor is going to be so hot in there, it actually may literally fail and not come back to life. It's, there we go. It's really struggling. Now, if I cared about that servo, I'd turn the car off now and let it cool down before I kept going. But this is also something of a stress test for it. That's what these 6 problems represent. So far we've managed problem 1, which already means it's not a bad crawler for what it is. If it can do any of the 6 problems, you've got a rock crawler, even if it is a trail truck. I'll also add that the ground temperature today is reasonably high. These rocks are quite warm. So these hard tyres are getting every advantage possible. And if this was winter, I think we'd have very little chance, but given that it's summer, I think it may, oh, it's going, it may just get this, maybe. No, probably not. We got close though, didn't we? It could use, yeah, slower motor, stronger servo, and better center of gravity. And I do wonder what it would be like with trailing arms. That would be interesting. And last of all is problem 6, which we're not getting in a pink fit, but we'll do it for completion's sake. And by do, I mean attempt and fail. Oh. We're not going to get real far on this, but another reason we do this is so that you can see how it fails, where its weak points are. Because if I just took an approach of saying, well, it's not 1/10 and it says trail crawler, it's not a rock crawler, it says trail truck, I'm not even going to try, then we wouldn't know that the servo fades under sustained load. We wouldn't know necessarily that the motor was too fast for crawling. We wouldn't know where and how to start with tuning for center of gravity. We wouldn't know that those soft noodly links are actually an advantage. We wouldn't know that that big extending bumper with the faux winch wasn't even a problem. That approach angle seems to be absolutely fine, and departure angle too. We wouldn't know that the shocks are tuned beautifully for crawling. There's a lot going for this little thing. I have missed overdrive a couple of times, particularly on problem 2 and also 3. And now, actually. Although not so much now. The nice thing about testing on a problem course, the nice thing about testing on a course that's always the same is that you know what your modifications are doing and you know what effect they're having. Now, I said these are going to cop absolute hiding, these things, and they have. There's a lot of scraping here. Now, these things have taken it too, but that's okay. It's actually these screws at the back and underneath that have taken it. The front also, that was getting in the way quite a bit, and it's angled kind of thus, and so that's copped a lot. And the front here as well. Now, the skid's taken quite a hammering, but really it's those rear links. Yeah, interesting. Now, servo, yeah, she's hot. Motor's probably too hot to, it's too hot to touch. And the ESC, once I find it, oh, there it is. Where's the heatsink? Oh yeah, she's toasty. Now the battery is probably quite warm too, because it's been a fairly sustained discharge. Yeah, not too bad. Okay, so there you go. Let's have a quick chat. Now, one thing in particular worth noting, I was comparing this thing to the Baby Capra, which, as far as I can tell, isn't made anymore. The four-wheel steering version is, and I've got that in a box ready to look at, and I'm going to do something similar to this video with that, but that's going to be a slightly different one. I just wanted to mention that the four-wheel steering UTB18S or whatever it is, that was Australian $530. This thing was Australian $390. That's $150 or so less, obviously with one less steering axle, but it's also a considerably simpler model with just this body with some very basic plastic trim on it and obviously simpler electronics. Right, just wanted to get that out of the way because this is going to vary in price depending where you're watching from, and if you're watching from America, which most of you actually are, it's currently this much in American dollars. I paid this much in American dollars. So different markets come with different prices. Now this motor is still very hot. The ESC on this all-in-one ESC receiver is hot, but it's not as bad as the motor, which is nearly too hot to touch now. And the servo is back to being warm. Battery is, yeah, warm. But again, it's a hot day, like it's a hot day. This thing is a trail truck as marked on the cover. Yes, it is. It crawls okay. It did problem 1. It very nearly did problem 5. I betcha. We whack these tires on, you watch it eat a bunch of the problems. It's tempting just to do it now and tell you what it did actually. Oh, okay, here's one thing I do like about this. Geez, they're done up tight, those axle nuts. Wow. The nice thing is that these are full size. They're not the little tiny 4mm axles of the UTB18. Yeah, I told you these were big. I suggested they were 12mm. I don't know what it is, but these are blinking huge hex nuts. And there's just no need for them to be that big. Or maybe there is, I don't know. Anyway, the cyber wheels fit on there just fine, being standard wheels. No. Gee. While I change these wheels, this video is brought to you by my channel members. You can see them next to me here on screen. Thank you so much, guys, for your support. Why isn't this going on? Is this too deep? The wheel's too deep. Right, so if you change wheels, you're going to need a shorter hex nut. Is that right? 12mm? Yeah, it's 12mm. So you'll need to get a standard size set of hex nuts that are like 6mm to take wheels with different offsets. So these also have more material in them, which is why I can't fit this right now. So we'll save that for another video, but we gave it a go. Yes, big thanks to my channel members. They keep this thing running in part with their monthly contributions. Thank you so much, all of you. I really appreciate it. And to all 3 tiers of my supporters, my very sincere thanks. I really very much appreciate it, and I don't take any of you for granted. Thank you. Costs a bit of money to run this thing, so yeah, every dollar helps me out. And to the rest of you watching, please throw me a like. Subscribe if you haven't. I have a lot coming, and we've been acquainting ourselves with short course trucks because I've got 14 of them. I think 14 now. We're going to compare. And before we do it, I've still got to get the UDR on the course and the new Senton V4 with that middle diff. Very excited about that. As far as this goes, is it a purchase? Yes, if you're a trail person looking for a smaller than 110 scale, capable go anywhere trail rig that's not going to be too fussed on high crawling expertise, yes, good purchase. If you are more into crawling though, consider the UTB18 in that scale. The four-wheel steering version I'll have on the channel soon. It's a little shorter, as will the four-wheel steering version be, but it's going to be a lot more capable. The downside is it's a lot more expensive. And another one to consider, which we looked at recently, is this guy, the MJX H12Y, I think it is. Now this guy, I've taken the stock wheels off and fitted HPI Rovers. I haven't tested this on the rocks yet. It has portals. It's a brushless system, plenty of speed for trail driving and plenty of low down torque and wheel control, even though it's not even censored. The uncensored version is good. Enduro wheels, HPI tires. I'm going to get this on the rocks soon, and maybe we'll do this and that just as a catch up, just to see what these smaller ones are like. Wheelbase is actually 9 inches, just like the Baby Capra. It's shorter than the Ecto. Now this is pretty incredible value also. So I'll have stuck a card up for that, but you can also find it in the description. I think that's it for smaller crawlers for that size. Because once you start going smaller than that, you're looking at the 18 scale, and they're just a different kettle of fish, aren't they? So this has been an interesting one, and quite a long one for such a small car. Thank you so much for watching. Throw me a like, and I'll catch you next time on RC-TNT. Thanks for watching.